I want to take a moment and talk about some of the Republican talking points you're going to hear now that Donald Trump has been found guilty of all 34 counts in the Manhattan District's election interference business fraud hush money case. Now, first thing you're going to hear is statute of limitations. I've done a couple videos on this, but that is the first thing that the lawyers on both sides would have looked at, including the judge. And when they brought to him to dismiss this case, if the statute of limitations had passed, the judge would have tossed it. Now, I know they're going to say corrupt judge. Judge Marchand is known for running a fair courtroom, and he would have tossed this case. You're only saying he's corrupt because it doesn't fit the narrative that you want to spin. Okay, so that's out of the way. Then there's the gag order. Well, the gag order limited Donald Trump from going on social media or talking to the news and spreading lies, disinformation, and making threats against court staff, the families of court staff, the jurors, and witnesses. But he still could have talked in his own defense, and the judge told him to his face he could have talked to his own defense. So the gag order doesn't apply. So you can forget that talking point. Then Donald Trump side saying he doesn't know what the charges were. Well, they read the charges and explained it to him during arraignment, and he said he understood. They talked about it during the trial, all the way through. But he was probably dozing in and out, reading his stories, his emotional support papers, things like that. So maybe he wasn't paying attention. And then before the jury went to deliberate, they went over the legal stuff. They went over like 50 pages of jury instructions about the law involving this case and what the crimes were regards to the law that the jury had to consider. So Donald Trump was he not paying attention then either? So you can forget that talking point. That's nothing but bullshit. And then there's this corrupt judge thing about the judge's daughter. The judge went to the bar and said, is there going to be an issue with me having this case? Here's the case I have. Here's the conflict I'm worried about. Is it actually a conflict? Do I need to recuse myself? The group that would take any action against him if he really had a conflict said, no, there is no conflict. So that's not even a thing. Okay. And now I'm hearing he's going to win on appeal. It's going to be tossed out on appeal. It's going to get appealed. He's going to get appealed. Appealed on what? There's really nothing to appeal. A couple of the things he might have had a shot for appealing. Even the judge said, well, you didn't object during Stormy Daniels' testimony. They said after she was done testifying, and they never objected while she was testifying. The judge said, well, you didn't object during her testimony, so it must not have been that bad. So we've got all of this stuff. It's just talking points. And you're hearing it from Republican voters, Republican lawmakers, but it's all talking points trying to distract you from everything else that's going on. And I'm going to get to the last talking point, which is it's election interference. Well, this case was about election interference. It was about Donald Trump interfering with the 2016 election to beat Hillary Clinton. And it turns out he did. He successfully meddled in that election by keeping these stories from the public. But one of the things you guys need to remember is the only reason Donald Trump ran for office when he did and announced his candidacy earlier than anybody ever announced their candidacy ever before was to prevent him from being charged, because he thought that by being a candidate for office, it somehow magically absolved him from any criminal prosecutions until after the upcoming election. That's why he announced his candidacy almost 2 years in advance of the election, almost right after the midterm elections in 2022. Almost a year before people started announcing their candidacies, elsewhere. So those are some of the talking points you're going to hear. Ignore most of them because they're all bullshit, and you can tell them exactly why. Just like I said, ignore the talking points. It's all bluster. But Donald Trump, convicted felon, 34 times over.